Hi, everybody. Today's training session, I'm going to talk with you about teeth, the well-being of your teeth, and aging codes, belief codes that I classify as aging codes. And by knowing these codes that I'm going to discuss today, you can clear the codes, and that should move you ahead of the game in regards to keeping your teeth healthier longer, keeping your teeth in your head longer versus losing them. I'm going to start by sharing with you a story about my sister and also a story about myself, where these certain codes that I'm sharing with you today actually kicked in, they activated, and the experiences we had as a byproduct of the codes activating. And both stories are very interesting. So we'll start with my sister. She turned 61 in December of this past year, so December 2018. And not too long after, she went to the dentist, and in just a series of what seemed like months, it happened very, very rapidly. May have been in progress a little bit before that, but it really went, and I'll use the very specific words, the condition went downhill very rapidly after she turned 61, and with her teeth. And her teeth started moving, and they got so squishy so fast, so bunched together so fast that it created a situation where it was more difficult to chew. And also her dentist said that it would lead to major problems down the road if she did not have the situation corrected. And the correction was braces. And that was, there were other options, but basically braces were the top option. And that meant getting braces on and having the braces for 2 years at age 61. And that's certainly not the best news story for a 61-year-old to get. I think it was 3 or 4 months after her, or 2 or 3 months, 3 or 4 months after her birthday. So, but she had the braces on, and in addition to having the braces, in order to do the work, they had to do also a type of gum reconstruction, and they had to do a type of grafting situation where they take tissue from part of your mouth, usually the palate, and they, in her case, the palate, and they had to graft the tissue and basically restore gum line so that everything would all work with this movement of the teeth and everything. So she told me that the experience was so traumatic for her that she felt that she had post-traumatic, something akin to post-traumatic death or post-traumatic stress syndrome after the fact. And I can appreciate that, because I get I've had my fair share of, I got to move my seat a little bit, of trauma events with teeth over the course of my lifetime. But anyway, the long and the short of it is that it made me very curious about how she had attracted, because this downhill thing with her teeth, with the whole situation happened very rapidly. And so I went in and I checked, what kind of belief codes does she have that triggered that attracted this event into her life. And what she had was something I called an age specific or decade driven belief code. And we have these are very common, and the belief code that she did awaken is one of these decade driven or age triggered belief codes that huge percentages of the human population actually hold at a subconscious level. Those of you watching probably have this code. The code will trigger usually at the age of 50 or the age of 60, or sometimes there can be a very specific aging date. And I'll tell you a story about me, one of my experiences that triggered at age 62, and I'll explain why 62, certainly for Americans and other countries that have early retirement set at age 62, a slew of codes can trigger at that point, and I'll explain why in just a few moments. But anyway, the code she woke up when she turned 60, exactly 60, and this whole thing that was happening in her mouth would have been happening from that point, and it began very rapidly moving as soon as she turned 61. And it was, the basic code was, when you pass 60, when you get over 60, and 61 would be over 60. When you get over 60, everything goes downhill. Everything goes downhill. Now, what was interesting about her particular situation with her mouth is the squishy thing where all her teeth started jumbling up together down in the front section was a byproduct of her teeth very rapidly moving from a higher point and kind of slipping down in the whole bone thing, like this, kind of moving forward downhill and causing this, in her mouth, causing this squishy thing. And but that was the belief code. That was one of the main players. There were other belief codes, but that was a main player in why she attracted this event, and why it got so bad, why the whole thing really catalyzed as soon as she crossed that age marker of 61. When you get over 60, and apparently her subconscious didn't, no doubt stuff was in play between the ages of 60 and 61, but 61, once you become 61, your subconscious would be clear that you're over 60. Everything goes downhill. Now, that is absolutely not true, and I'll share with you how to clear codes like that in a minute. The other code that many, many people have, and that she had, that is a match for this, is that when you're over 60, or it might be when you're over 50, because sometimes these very codes that I'm talking about, which I call collective codes, meaning such large numbers of the human population have them, it's like almost everybody has these particular codes, collective consciousness coding. But some people, the coding is when you get over 50. When you turn 50, it's downhill from there. Or when you turn 60, or when you turn 50. In her case, it was when you turn 60, or when you're over 60, everything is downhill from there. The other common code that relates to this hill thing is you are over the hill. You've all heard that phrase before, that figure of speech. You're over the hill, meaning well, basically, it's downhill from there. In a positive way, it could mean you've climbed the toughest part. Now it should all be easy street, and that can play out as you get older too. But for many people, it's you're over the hill is a negative thing. Our subconscious translates it, even our conscious minds, as a negative phrase. That when you're over the hill, it means you're old. You're too old for this. You're too old for that. You're old. So when you turn blank, you are over the hill. And that will be age driven, and usually the age markers that trigger that are age 50 or age 60, where you begin at a subconscious level to identify with over the hill, and all the beliefs that go with that idea of what are all the outcomes of being over the hill. So she had triggered that code as well. Now, these are inherited codes for the most part. You can have age-driven or decade-driven or age-specific belief codes from past life experiences. You can acquire them through vaccination codes. I call them vaccination codes. You can get them that way, but by far the majority of age-driven belief codes are inherited. And so I'm going to just share with you, many of you would know this, that have studied with me for quite some time. You already know how to clear inherited belief codes, but those of you who don't, I'll give you just a real quick lesson in that. You basically just need to find the ancestor that started the troublesome thought pattern. Like you're over the hill at age 50, or you're over the hill at age 50, or once you get over age 60, everything is downhill from there. Meaning everything's not good from there. There's a troublesome ancestor or multiple troublesome ancestors that did a huge buy-in to that, possibly based on their own experiences, that after that particular point in time, they had a very tough time, and maybe their father or their mother had a very tough time, and so they observed this and they did a buy-in to this idea, or they themselves crafted the idea that after this particular age, it's just, you know, not good. It's just a downhill slide. So you just need to go into your lineage. And you need to focus on 4 basic tracks. Your father through his father, your father through his mother, your mother through her father, your mother through her mother. And you just use dowsing. You can use a pendulum or muscle testing or a dowsing rod or whatever you want. And you just find out, where do I have this belief code? And have I inherited this belief code or these belief codes from any of my ancestors? And if you get a yes, then okay, where are they? Who are the ancestors that I inherited this from? And where are the start points in the different ancestral lines? So anything in my father through my father's line, anything in my father through my mother's line, anyone in my father or my mother through my father's line, sorry, anything through my father through my mother's line, anything through my mother through my mother's line. So father through father, father through mother, mother through father, mother through mother. And let's say you get a yes on father through father in that lineage. Okay, well, how many generations back was the initial creator of the code? And you might get 4 generations or 5 generations back. Let's say 5 generations back. And then you need to know how to dowse or muscle test so you can count backwards like that. And you get 4 generations back, and was it a male or female? It was a female. Okay. And you just then hold your intention and you say, I take my power back from that ancestor and any of the progeny from that ancestor to and through me, to escape all connection with that idea and all resonance with that idea. All of you, because it could have passed all the way down that line, or it could have jumped. But bottom line, you got it. And you take permission to escape, or you take your power back to escape all connection with that idea. Another thing you can do is just say, keep your opinion. You think of those ancestors and just say, keep your opinion to your opinions to yourself. That might have been an experience for all of you or some of you, but it doesn't need to be an experience for me. And that's absolutely true in our lifetime, in where we are today. We have so many procedures we'll just take the teeth subject. We have a very different experience here on the planet today than our ancestors had even two generations ago, even a generation ago. That we've made so many advancements that it's absolutely a fact that you have, if you do particular things, provided belief codes aren't in the way. Belief codes, even if you do everything that doctors tell you to do, dentists tell you to do with your teeth, if you've got gnarly belief codes that say, here's how it is for you, no matter what you do, you're going to have challenges with your teeth, period. So, but if you can get those belief codes out of the way, we know that you can greatly enhance how long you keep your teeth. And we know that you can keep healthy teeth until you die. So we know that things can be different for us, but you got to get out of being under the thumb of your ancestral coding, and that's how you do it. Now my story, I had similar codes. I had the same coding. Very often children who have obviously the same ancestors will inherit some of the same belief codes from those ancestors. We won't inherit all the same belief codes, but we'll certainly inherit some of the same belief codes as siblings that will each inherit some of the same codes, and we'll have those in common. So I had in common with my sister the belief code that after you turn 60, once you're over 60, it's downhill from there. And I didn't have a lot of downhill expression in other areas of my life, but definitely the code began playing out with my teeth. And I had a back molar that after I turned 60, now I found this code not too long after I turned 60, but there was another sneaky code in there that that I didn't find that became problematic 2 years later. So when I turned 60, I had not been to the dentist for quite a long time, just because I don't do well at the dentist. I've had a lot of not favorable experiences with dentists, and so I'm one of those scaredy cats, and I'll put it off as long as possible. Well, I had made the disastrous mistake of putting off teeth cleaning for way too long, because I have a history of periodontal difficulties, and I just let the teeth cleaning thing go way too long. And so by the time I bit on something or who knows what, and I cracked a tooth, and I had to go to the dentist because of that. And in the process, I thought, well, great, I'll have my teeth cleaned, and went to the dentist and got everything fixed, and didn't have the teeth cleaning. The dentist wanted to, for whatever reason, it was kind of unusual, wanted to handle that immediate situation. Maybe it wasn't that unusual, but wanted to handle that first, and he did. And then we were setting up for doing the cleaning thing, and he mentioned that I've got a loose tooth in the back that's, and I had noticed this tooth in the back was kind of slipping down because it would get in the way sometimes when I chewed. And I had bitten on something that had kind of loosened it a little bit, and I didn't think that that was, you know, anything hugely problematic, that it would all tighten up at some point. This was just my thought. But he said, you know, you've got a loose tooth back there. And I said, oh, you know, I did notice that. And he says, well, it's actually a very loose tooth. And I said, I noticed that that's kind of been slipping down. There you go. It's all downhill after 60. And he said, well, it's a loose tooth. He said, you need to have it pulled out. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, can't I just regrow? And he said, well, you've lost too much bone, and you need to have that pulled out. That's why it's slipping down like that. And I said, well, can't I just regrow the bone? And he said, I think everything physically is adjustable if you could just energetically. I really do believe that if you can get all the ducks in a row, you should be able to accomplish all kinds of pretty amazing things. Can't you just regrow the bone? And he literally laughed at me, and he said, no, you cannot just actually regrow the jawbone like that, and you're going to need to have that tooth pulled. I said, well, I want to think about this a little bit and just kind of gear myself up for it. And I said, let's schedule an appointment for a later date, and I'll come in and have the teeth cleaned, and I'll have the tooth pulled at that time. And he said, you know, okay, whatever. And I went home and I immediately started doing research on growing bone and, you know, saving your teeth. And in fact, I found right away, I found a doctor in an article, fantastic article from a doctor, interestingly, in Belfast, Ireland, that was having success with getting patients to regrow bone with this procedure where they basically paint the tooth with this particular protein from baby pigs' teeth, and it tricks the body and the brain into thinking that that you're just a young child, and it triggers a growth response in the jaw and in the bone, and you actually can regrow and salvage your teeth. But the trick is you've got to have enough bone left in where the tooth is for that, you know, the whole protein application thing to actually connect with the bone. And but anyway, I found this doctor, and I was very excited, and I found other people. I did research. I found other people that were doing this work and having success, and I thought, this is just great, and I'm going to wait and just hold off until I get to Ireland, because my move to Ireland was already scheduled. The long and the short of it is that I got to Ireland. I saw the doctor for a consultation. Then I had to schedule another meeting for go back to actually have the whole thing done. And it between that point and the point I actually got back, because I couldn't get back into the doctor for quite a few months, and there was quite a few months of a delay between when I first talked to the doctor or her manager from the United States to the point that I actually got down even for a consultation with her. Many, many months, almost a year had passed. And then by the time I had my first consultation, she said so much bone had been lost that she didn't know. She could not guarantee that she'd be able to save, the procedure would save the tooth, but we'd get in there with the teeth cleaning first and see exactly how much bone was still left. And because the x-rays alone couldn't tell her, and then we'd go from there. Well, a bizarre incident happened where I had to cancel my appointment for having all that procedure done, and the procedure was delayed another, I think it was over 3 months. And so by the time I actually got in there, it ended up there wasn't enough bone to save the tooth, and I had to have the tooth pulled. So what is all that about? That really raised the red flag for me. um, and I was sad. It was a hard experience for me because I really wanted to save that tooth. So what attracted that experience? Well, what attracted that experience was and why did it happen then instead of earlier? Why wasn't the doctor able to definitively tell me initially, that tooth's got to come out, there's no way we're going to be saved? She truly didn't know. She said that there's really no way to tell until we got in and did the procedure and started the process, and then she'd be able to tell for sure. So what delayed things until the age of 62, and why didn't it work out? Well, because at age 62 precisely, I popped a belief code that says when you are old, you start losing your teeth. When you get old, you start losing your teeth. Now, everybody has a different definition at a subconscious level of when they equal old. My definition was precisely age 62, not age 50. Many people have, you are getting old as soon as you turn 50. Other people have decade driven. Other people have, you are getting old. Oops, now you're getting old when you turn 60. Some people have, you're getting old when you turn 70, but most people have 50 or 60. I had 62, and a lot of people have 62. What is that all about? Well, it's all about early retirement. In the United States, and many other companies have this same early retirement age, or retirement age of 62. In 1956, the early retirement concept was started, and people, instead of retiring at age 65, could retire at age 62. Well, we have another belief code in there, most people on the planet, that when you retire equals when you are old, or when you are getting old. That's when you retire. So retirement equals old age, or old. And from my grandmother, on my father's side, I inherited I equal old at 62, because she had that belief code of retirement age is 62 and equals old. She did a full buy-in with that, and then it passed down the line right to me. I could have gotten it other ways, but that's who I actually got the code from. You use the same procedure to clear that kind of code. So there are a whole bunch of juicy age-driven belief codes that you can get out of your belief code inventory right now, and I'd highly recommend it. So just to review, when you pass, or when you're over, and for some people it'll be 50, for some people it'll be 60, when you're over blank, it's all downhill from there. When you are over blank, or when you are over 50, let's say, or when you're over 60, you are over the hill. Find out where you got that idea and get rid of it. First, say to yourself, that's absolutely not true. But second, go in and find, where did you get the programming? It's 90% of the time, it's going to be truly one of your ancestors. Sometimes you can, like I said, get the codes through past life experience, or through vaccination codes. And that's a whole other procedure for how you clear those codes. But usually it's ancestral. So go from there, and that will usually knock it out. When you turn blank, and everybody again has a different age-related code, so see if you can figure out what is the age that your subconscious mind thinks you equal old. And it's amazingly young. For some people it's 50, for some people it's 60, for other people like me it's 62. That would be another common trigger. For some people it's older, but see if you can get, what does your subconscious mind think your you equal old date is, and clear that code. And then when you're old, again, this all began with talking about teeth. When you're old, one of the outcomes of being old equals you start losing your teeth. And you can imagine there's all kinds of other belief codes that go, when you're old, you start blank, 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 you start breaking bones, you start losing your balance, you start it on and on and on and on and on. There's tons of codes, but today's program is really about these teeth codes. So there you have it. Hopefully those stories about me and my sister will motivate you to as soon as the broadcast ends, if not right now while we're doing it, that you're clearing these codes. Concentrate and get this out of the way. Now, if this kind of stuff intrigues you and interests you and you want to learn more, I would highly recommend that you attend the Sedona Gathering this year, because the Sedona Gathering, which is going to happen in November 8, 9, and 10, 2019, the topic this year is all about the aging process. And part of what I'm going to do, it's about longevity, things you can do to actually increase your lifespan, energetic things and physical things. I'm going to focus, since I'm a subtle energy expert, I'm going to focus on energetic things you can do, including belief code work. I'm going to hand participants over 100 belief codes like this that are decade-driven or age-specific belief codes that are very common to the worldwide human population, and show you how to clear those codes. And that will make a huge dent, give you a huge edge on a better experience as you're aging. So the Sedona Gathering this year is about, again, how to elongate your life, because we do have different, what I call checkout points, different death dates, and how to determine what your current death date is. And I won't get too much into this subject, what your current death date is, and what your windows of opportunity are, and how you would move to a different window if you wanted to elongate your life a little bit or a lot. And then we're going to spend most of the time at the Sedona Gathering talking about how to make whatever the length of time is that you've got left as enjoyable as possible, as healthy and as enjoyable and as fulfilling as possible. And part of that includes clearing, a gigantic bundle of belief codes that I guarantee will get in your way if you do not clear these codes. Most of you have the codes I'm going to be discussing at the Sedona Gathering. So click on the link that is on this video panel. There's also a link below the video, and check out what's involved in the Sedona Gathering. I do a gathering every year, but the theme is different every year, and I won't be repeating this theme at this next Sedona Gathering or the next one. I do one theme once a year, and the theme about aging is going to happen in 2019. So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's program and that you'll clear the codes I reviewed today immediately. Bye for now.